Please like this video. I really need your support right now. It's the only way this story can reach more people. Thank you so much for being here with me and for your support. The first time Melissa used that tone, I was standing in our kitchen with my phone in my hand, showing her a route map through Arizona. Not a fantasy, not a midlife crisis poster. A real plan, dates, hotels, mileage, stops. Evan and I had been talking about it for months. Melissa didn't even look at the screen. She stared at me like I'd just confessed to something. So Italy is a maybe, she said, slow and neat. But two grown men playing biker is a sure thing. Riding, I corrected, because I'm apparently a man who still believes wording matters. And it's not instead of you. It's a separate trip. She set her wine glass down like it offended her. Funny, because the way you're smiling right now, you don't smile like that when I talk about our life. Our life, I repeated. You mean the tile samples and the spreadsheet? Her eyes sharpened. Don't do that. Do what? Act like I'm asking for too much. I'm asking for a marriage. I leaned against the counter. Melissa, it's a vacation conversation. No, she cut in. It's a priorities conversation. And then she said the line that changed the rules. Maybe family life just isn't for you. It landed like a slap, not because it was loud, but because it wasn't accidental. She didn't say, I'm upset. She didn't say, I feel left out. She questioned the whole structure. Like she could pull the floor out from under me because we were arguing about plane tickets. I stared at her and felt something ugly wake up in my chest. Fear, sure, but also a quiet warning. If she could threaten the entire marriage over a disagreement, what was she going to do the next time I didn't fold? I wish I could tell you I called it out right then. I didn't. I did what a lot of decent men do when they hear the word maybe attached to the end of their marriage. I backed up. Okay, I said, holding my palms out. Okay, we can talk Italy. We can do Italy. I can shorten Arizona. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Her shoulders loosened, just a little, like a lock clicking open. See, she said. That wasn't hard. I nodded like I'd just learned something. And I did. If I'd known where it was headed, I would have treated that moment like a fire alarm instead of a misunderstanding. Because from that night on, the threat didn't disappear. It just got smarter. A few weeks later, it was the living room. Melissa wanted to refresh it. New furniture, new lighting, new rug, new everything. She talked about it the way people talk about necessary surgery. We have guests, she said, scrolling through photos. Do you want them to think we live in a time capsule? We live in a clean house, I replied. It's fine. She tilted her phone toward me. Fine is what you settle for when you're alone. I looked at the price tag and felt my jaw tighten. That's not a refresh, Melissa. That's a small renovation. You spend money on your garage like it's a shrine. I spend money on tools and parts when something breaks. She laughed once. Not warm, not playful, just a little burst that said, you're cute when you pretend you're in charge. It's always when something breaks, she said. Everything with you has to be justified like you're defending a case. I held her gaze. I'm defending our budget. Her smile thinned. If you're so worried about being us, maybe you should ask yourself why you're fighting me on every adult decision. I'm not fighting you. I'm saying no to a number. Melissa's eyes went colder, and there it was again. No direct threat, just the shadow of it sliding across the conversation. Sometimes I wonder, she said softly, if I married a man or a roommate. I didn't answer fast enough, and she pounced on the silence. See, she said, that right there. You get quiet and distant like you're already halfway out. I could have told her the truth, that her hints were exhausting, and every talk felt like stepping into a trap with my hands tied. Instead, I did the same thing I'd done in the kitchen. I negotiated with the fear. We can do a few things, I said. Paint. Maybe a new couch. But we're not dropping a fortune just so your sister can approve. She snapped her head up. Don't bring Jenna into it. I raised an eyebrow. Then stop buying a house for your audience. Her nostrils flared. You always do this. You make me sound shallow. I'm not making you sound like anything. I'm reacting to what you're saying. She stared at me like she was measuring how far she could push. Then she did what she'd started doing more and more. She stepped away from the actual topic and drifted toward the cliff edge. I'm not doing this forever, Daniel, she said. I'm not staying in a marriage where I have to beg for basic things. Nobody was begging. She wasn't asking for food. She was asking for designer furniture and total control over the narrative. But when she said forever, My stomach knotted like a man hearing his mortgage might get called in. So I gave her something. I said, fine. Pick the couch. We'll do paint. We'll keep it reasonable. Her shoulders dropped again, satisfied. And the weird part is, she looked almost tender after that. Like she'd won a little trophy and didn't need to grind my face into it. That's the pattern you start to recognize when you've been trained by someone you love. Pressure, threat, relief, then warmth. Like you're supposed to forget the knife because she put the blade away. Evan was the first one to call it what it was. Evan's been my friend since before I had a mortgage and a lawn. He's the guy who will help you move a couch without talking about his feelings, but he'll also tell you the truth without dressing it up. We were in my garage one Saturday, the door open, the air smelling like oil and grass clippings. My bike sat there, half covered, like a dog that knows the house is tense. Evan watched me tighten a bolt that didn't need tightening. Then he said, "You've been quiet lately." "I'm fine." He snorted. That's what men say when they're not fine. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Melissa's just intense." "She's not intense," he said. "She's consistent." I glanced at him. What does that mean? It means she does the thing that works. I hated the way he said it, calm and simple, like he was explaining how a vending machine works. "You think she's doing it on purpose," I said. "I think she's learned what gets you to move," he answered. "And she uses it." That's a strong word. He leaned back against my workbench. "Call it whatever makes you comfortable. But I've watched you change. You used to argue. Now you avoid. You used to tell her your plans. Now you ask permission." I opened my mouth to deny it and realized I couldn't. Evan nodded toward the bike. "That thing isn't the problem. It's the fact you have something that isn't hers. She's my wife." "Yeah," he said. "And you're still a person." That hit harder than it should have. Because it was true. I'd started shrinking my life without noticing. I stopped talking about work. Not because I was hiding anything, but because it was safer. I stopped offering opinions about small stuff. Dinner, weekends, money, even TV. Because any disagreement could turn into a referendum on whether I deserved to stay married. I didn't feel like a husband. I felt like an employee in a job where the manager threatened to fire you every time you asked a question. And the thing is, Melissa noticed the distance. She just didn't connect it to her behavior. She treated it like a new failure of mine. It came to a head over dinner on a Tuesday, nothing special. Chicken, rice, a salad she didn't eat. The kitchen lights were bright, like they wanted honesty. She set her fork down and said, "You've been so cold lately." I took a sip of water. "I'm not cold. I'm tired." "Tired of what?" she asked, and the way she said it already had a verdict in it. "Of me. Tired of every conversation feeling like it can turn into a punishment." Her eyes widened, offended. "A punishment? Wow." I kept my voice steady. "Melissa, you can't bring up the marriage ending every time we disagree." "I don't," she snapped. "You do. You just do it with different words." She leaned forward. "So now I'm the villain." "I didn't say that." "You did," she said, louder. "Because you want to make me feel guilty for having standards." I let out a short laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "Standards," I repeated. "Right." Her jaw set. "You know what I mean." "I know you mean do it my way, or I'll remind you what you could lose." She slapped her napkin onto the table. "That is not what I'm doing." "Then stop doing it." Silence. Thick and hot. Melissa's voice dropped into that softer register she used when she wanted to sound reasonable while she aimed for the throat. "I just don't understand why you're more excited about your garage and your little trips than you are about building a life with me." I looked at her, and the sarcasm slipped out before I could stop it. "My garage doesn't threaten to leave me over a couch." Her mouth opened like I'd insulted her mother. "You're unbelievable," she said. "You've turned into this selfish man who only cares about himself." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam anything. I just pushed my plate away. "Here's the deal," I said. "If we can't talk without you pulling the emergency cord, then I'm done having these talks. I'll make decisions for my life. You make decisions for yours. And we'll see what's left." Her eyes flicked, like she didn't expect me to say that. "So you're threatening me now?" "No," I replied. "I'm taking myself out of the game you keep running." She scoffed. "You're so dramatic." I stood up and carried my plate to the sink. "I'm not dramatic. I'm exhausted." I went to the garage and closed the door behind me. Not to sulk, to breathe, to sit in the one place in the house where nobody asked me to prove I deserved to exist. And that night, I did something I should have done earlier. Initiative, not a tantrum, a change in rules. I opened our banking app and created a separate account in my name for my paycheck deposit. I didn't hide it. I didn't drain anything. I just stopped pretending our money was ours when she treated my decisions like hers to approve. If she wanted to talk adult decisions, I was going to act like an adult with boundaries. The next morning, Melissa was sunshine. I walked into the kitchen and she was there in a loose sweater, music playing, coffee already made. Like the night before was a bad commercial we both agreed to ignore. Morning, she said, sweet. She stepped in and kissed my cheek. I made it the way you like. I stared at her for a second. Thanks. She smiled. I'm sorry about last night. I got worked up. I miss you. I feel like we've been roommates. There it was. First softening. Like care. A little apology. A little affection. Different outfit. Same play. I poured coffee. I hear you. Her eyes searched my face for the usual relief. So we're okay? I took a sip. We're calm. That's different. Melissa's smile stayed on, but the corners twitched. What does that mean? It means I'm not doing the cycle anymore, I said. No more escalating and resetting like nothing happened. She blinked. That's not what I do. I set the mug down. Then you won't mind if it stops. She tried to laugh it off. God, you talk like a therapist. I talk like a man who's paying attention, I replied and walked out. That should have been the moment she adjusted. Instead, it just made her smarter. A week later, she invited people over for dinner. Not a casual thing, a planned thing. She texted Evan's wife, Claire herself. She made sure Jenna would come. She made sure the house looked like a magazine spread. When I asked why, she said, because we need to be normal. Normal. Like our marriage was a product she wanted reviewed. Evan showed up with Claire around 7. Evan was in his usual calm mode. But Claire had that social radar. She walked into the tension and immediately started making jokes, keeping things moving. Jenna arrived 10 minutes later, loud and glowing. The type who talks with her hands and treats every story like an audition. Danny, Jenna said, hugging me like she owned me. Look at you, still pretending you're low maintenance. Just committed to the dream, I replied. Melissa laughed a little too hard. He is low maintenance. He only needs 3 things: coffee, silence, and that motorcycle. I felt Evan's eyes flick to me. He'd heard the tone. Dinner started fine. Melissa was charming. Sharp jokes. Hostess mode. She touched my arm when people watched. It was performance-level affection. Then the conversation drifted to weekend plans, and Melissa steered it right where she wanted. Daniel wants to go ride again, she said, smiling at Claire. Like he's still 25. I took a slow bite of food. I didn't know motorcycles had age limits. Oh, they don't, Melissa said. They just come with a uniform. Leather jacket, serious face, the whole I'm free routine. Jenna laughed. Stop. That's so true. Next he's going to start calling himself Road Warrior. I looked at Melissa. You done? She widened her eyes. What? I'm teasing. Claire chuckled politely, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's a cool hobby, she offered. At least it's active. Melissa waved a hand. Sure. It's active. It's also kind of adorable. Adorable. That word in that tone. Like my life was a toy she tolerated. Evan set his fork down. You ever ride with him? Melissa's smile turned smug. God, no. I like my skin where it is. I nodded. Fair. You also like control where it is. Melissa's eyes snapped to mine. Excuse me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just did the thing she wasn't used to me doing in public. I held the boundary where people could see it. You've been taking shots at it all night, I said. If you want to joke, joke. But don't talk about what matters to me like it's embarrassing. The room went quiet in that awkward way where everyone suddenly remembers they have a mouthful of food. Melissa laughed, trying to brush it off. Wow. Sensitive. I'm not sensitive, I replied. I'm clear. Jenna lifted her glass like she wanted to rescue her sister. Okay. Let's not make this a thing. Melissa tilted her head, eyes bright with challenge. He's making it a thing. Evan looked at Melissa. He's not. He's answering you. Claire cleared her throat. So, how's work been, Daniel? I turned to Claire with a small nod. Busy. We had an outage today, actually. Melissa's eyes flickered at the word outage, like she'd already filed it away. She kept smiling, kept hosting, but something in her posture changed. Like she'd lost a round and was planning the next one. After dinner, while Melissa and Jenna were in the living room, Evan followed me into the kitchen to help with dishes. He didn't speak right away. He just rinsed plates with that steady focus he has, like he's buying time. Then he said, "That wasn't a joke." I scrubbed a pan. "No, it's the contempt," he added. "That's what kills it. When someone makes your life small in front of people." I nodded once. "I know." Evan glanced toward the living room. "She's not trying to get you to grow up. What's she trying to do?" He dried his hands. "Make you easier to steer." I exhaled slowly. "Yeah." Evan's voice stayed calm, but there was steel in it. "So stop being steerable." I looked at him, and for the first time in a while, I felt something like alignment. Like my spine remembered it had a job. When Evan and Claire left, Melissa walked them to the door with that bright smile. The second it closed, her face shifted like someone hit a switch. "You embarrassed me," she said. I walked past her toward the kitchen. "No, I corrected you." "You corrected me in front of my sister," she snapped, following. "In front of Claire. In front of people you were using as an audience," I replied. Her voice went sharp. "Don't start." "I'm not starting," I said. "I'm ending something." She crossed her arms. "So now I can't even joke with my own friends." "You can joke," I answered. "Just don't use me as the punchline." Melissa stared at me, then did the thing she always did when she couldn't win on logic. She reached for the lever. "If you're going to be like this," she said, slow and wounded, "maybe we really are too different." I met her eyes. Maybe. That word hit her harder than any argument. Because it wasn't fear. It was acceptance. And she didn't know what to do with acceptance. She went to bed early that night without another word. I stayed up, sat at the kitchen table, and wrote down what I was changing. Not feelings. Logistics. Rules. 1. My paycheck goes into my account. 2. Garage stays locked when I'm not home. 3. No more arguing about my time. I inform. I don't ask. 4. If she brings up ending the marriage as leverage, I treat it like a real option, not a threat. I didn't feel dramatic writing it. I felt calm, like a man drawing a map out of a bad neighborhood. 2 days later, Melissa ran the second softening tactic. The bigger one. The one that's supposed to make you forget you were ever angry. I came home from work and she was on the porch waiting, hair done, dressed like we were going somewhere nice. She stepped close and slipped her hand into mine. "Let's go out," she said. "Just us." I made reservations. I stared at her. "Why?" She smiled like I was adorable now. "Because I love you, and I've been thinking. We've been off. I want to fix it." Fix it. Like she was tightening a loose hinge. At the restaurant, she acted like the Wi-Fi'd married. Quick jokes. Warm eyes. Compliments. She asked questions about my day. She even said, "I'm sorry I've been hard on you." For a second, my body wanted to relax. Habit. Hope. That old hunger to believe the softness was real. Then she reached across the table and said, "So, about Italy. I found a great package. If we book it now, we get a better deal." There it was. The invoice attached to the apology. I leaned back in the booth. "We're not doing Italy this year." Her smile froze. "What?" "I'm taking a week with Evan in Arizona," I said. "You can take a trip with Jenna if you want. Or we can plan something together later. But I'm not trading my life for temporary peace." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "So this is punishment." "It's a boundary," I answered. "I'm not negotiating under threat anymore." She lowered her voice, trying to keep it sweet in public. "Daniel, be reasonable." "I am," I replied. "Reasonable is me still being married to you while I keep my own identity." Her jaw tightened. "Identity. That's what this is. A motorcycle identity." I smiled, small and tired. "If you keep calling it that, you're going to make my point for me." We drove home in silence. She walked ahead of me into the house like I was a stranger who'd followed her in. And then the kill turn hit on a day that should have been boring. There was a power issue at the office. Computers went down. Lights flickered. Management sent everyone home early. I didn't call Melissa. I didn't feel like narrating my movements like I needed permission to exist. I pulled into the driveway around 2:30 and noticed the garage door was open. That was strange. Melissa almost never stepped into the garage. She acted like it was a foreign country with bad weather. I parked, got out, and walked in. Melissa was standing next to my motorcycle with her phone held up, taking photos. Not casual photos. Not look at this photos. She was shooting angles, tank, odometer, tires, suspension, the side profile. Like she was building a listing. My stomach went cold in a very clean way. Not panic. Clarity. "Melissa," I said even. "What are you doing?" She didn't jump. She didn't look guilty. She looked confident, like she'd finally taken charge of something that should have been hers. Handling it, she replied. I stepped closer and looked at her phone screen. A draft listing was open. Title, description, price, photos already uploaded. My voice stayed calm. You're trying to sell my bike. She lifted her chin. I'm selling it. Because somebody in this marriage has to make adult decisions. I stared at her for a second, and I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly on brand it felt like a bad script. You didn't talk to me, I said. You would have argued, she replied. And I'm tired of begging you to be a husband. I set my keys on the workbench. Slow? Take it down. Melissa's eyes flashed. No. I looked at her like she'd just spoken a different language. That wasn't a suggestion. She scoffed. Listen to yourself. You're acting like a teenager protecting his toy. It's not a toy, I replied. It's mine. And you're in my space. She pointed at the bike. That thing is the reason we can't move forward. No, I corrected. It's the reason you can't control everything. Her mouth tightened. So now I'm controlling. Yes, I said. That's what this is. Melissa stepped closer, eyes bright, voice sharpened. You refuse to grow up. You refuse to choose the marriage. I held her gaze. I choose a marriage with respect, not a marriage with a manager. She stared at me, breathing quick, like she wanted me to get angry so she could label it. I didn't give it to her. Then she went for the lever. The old faithful. Fine, she said. If you want to be like this, maybe I should just file for divorce. And right there, with her phone in her hand, my bike behind her, the garage door opened like the world could see what she was doing. Something inside me unclenched. No fear. No scramble. No apology. Just a clean decision. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. I think you should. Her face changed so fast, it was almost comical. What? I think you should, I repeated. Because you don't get to threaten the marriage for years and then try to sell my property when you don't get your way. Melissa's voice went high. So you're just giving up? I shrugged. I've been fighting for years. You've been testing how much you can take. She stabbed at her phone screen like it was a weapon. Fine. Fine. I'll delete it. She deleted it. I watched her do it. Not because I didn't trust her, because trust wasn't the point anymore. The point was the boundary. She shoved the phone into her pocket. There. Happy. I looked at her calm. No. I'm clear. Melissa's eyes darted around like she wanted the old script back. You're overreacting. I walked to the pegboard and took my garage key off the hook. I'm reacting accurately. You can't just decide this, she snapped. You can't just throw everything away because of a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. It was a move. A control move. And you made it in my garage like you own me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no soft apology ready, no charm ready, because she hadn't planned for me to stand still. I held up the key. From now on, the garage stays locked. You don't go in here without me. And you don't touch my things. She laughed, bitter. Oh my God, you're insane. I smiled slightly. No, I'm finally sane. Melissa stared at me, then turned and walked into the house like she wanted to slam a door, but couldn't find one heavy enough. I stood there a moment, hearing the quiet click of the garage cooling down. Then I did the next initiative step, the one that makes everything real. I called a document preparer the next morning. Not a courtroom circus. Not a war. Paperwork. Structure. Separation. I didn't tell Melissa I was calling. I didn't do it to scare her. I did it because the threat had become a pattern, and patterns don't stop because you wish. That afternoon, she came home acting soft again, like she'd rehearsed a different role. She set grocery bags on the counter and said, Light, I got your favorite chips. I looked at the bags. Okay. She walked closer, hands on my shoulders, voice low. Daniel, I was just trying to help. I panicked. I want us to be okay. I didn't move away, but I didn't lean in either. You didn't panic, I said. You planned. Her face tightened. That's not fair. It's accurate, I replied. She blinked fast, trying to summon tears and not quite getting there. So what? You're going to punish me forever? I shook my head. I'm not punishing you. I'm stepping out of the loop. Melissa swallowed. What did you do? I didn't answer right away. Not because I was being dramatic. Because I wanted to choose my words like a man, not like a teenager in a fight. I changed my deposits, I said. And I started paperwork. Her face drained. Paperwork. You've been bringing up ending this marriage for years, I said. So I'm treating it like a real conversation now. She stared at me like I'd just taken oxygen out of the room. You can't be serious. I nodded. I am. Melissa stepped back. This is crazy. Over a motorcycle. I almost laughed again. It's never been about the motorcycle. It's about you thinking you get to press the end button whenever you don't get your way. Her voice went sharp. Because you don't listen. I listen, I answered. I just don't obey. Her eyes flashed. So now I'm some dictator. You said it, not me, I replied. She paced 2 steps, then turned, trying a different tactic. The sweet one. Okay, she said, forcing warmth. Okay, we can reset. We can go to counseling. We can do whatever you want. Just don't do this. I looked at her, and for a second, I saw the version of Melissa I'd loved, the bright woman who could light up a room. Then I saw what she'd turned into when she didn't get control. You don't want counseling, I said. You want your lever back. Her mouth trembled with anger. That's not true. I picked up my coffee mug and took a sip. It was lukewarm. Fitting. Here's what's true, I said. You tried to sell my bike without asking. You used the marriage like a threat every time you didn't get agreement. You publicly mocked me to shrink me. And every time I stayed calm and asked for basic respect, you acted like I attacked you. Melissa's eyes went glossy. You're making me sound awful. I'm describing your behavior, I replied. If it sounds awful, maybe sit with that. She opened her mouth, then shut it. She wasn't used to consequences that didn't require my permission. That night, she slept in the guest room. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened again. Coffee, music, a kiss she tried to place like a stamp. I didn't accept the stamp. I packed a week of clothes into a duffel and put it in my truck. I didn't hide it. I didn't dramatize it. I just moved with purpose. Melissa saw the bag and froze. What is that? A bag, I replied. For what? I'm staying at Evans for a few days, I said. I need space. Her voice rose. You're abandoning me. I looked at her calm. I'm protecting myself. She stepped closer. Daniel, don't do this. You're being stubborn. No, I said. I'm being consistent. I grabbed my keys. She followed me to the door. So you're just leaving, she said, and now the anger came out clean. After everything I've done for you. I opened the door. You didn't do things for me, I replied. You did things to position yourself. There's a difference. Her face twisted. You're unbelievable. I paused on the porch and gave her the final line she'd earned over years of testing. You don't get to threaten the foundation and then act surprised when it cracks, I said. You wanted the word to have power. Now it's just a word. Then I walked to my truck and drove away, leaving her standing in a doorway that suddenly felt a lot bigger than she liked. A few months later, my life looked quieter, cleaner, and honestly, better. I rented a small house not far from where Evan lived. 2 bedrooms, a garage that stayed mine, and a driveway where my motorcycle sat like it could finally breathe. I started riding again on weekends. Not to prove anything, just because I could. Work got easier too, or maybe I did. I stopped walking around with that low-level dread of setting off a threat with the wrong sentence. My friends noticed I laughed more. I slept deeper. I met someone later. Nothing rushed, nothing messy. A woman named Tessa who didn't compete with my hobbies. She asked questions because she was curious, not because she was building a case. The first time she saw the bike, she just smiled and said, "That looks fun. Be safe." No sarcasm. No little knife hidden in a joke. Just respect. As for Melissa, I heard bits through Jenna and mutual friends. She moved into a smaller place and complained that men are impossible. She told people I chose a motorcycle over her because that story keeps her hands clean. But the truth followed her anyway. People don't forget who turns a marriage into a threat every time they don't get their way. The last time I saw her, months after I left, she looked at me like she was trying to find the old button to press. You really did it, she said. I nodded. Yeah. She scoffed, trying to cover the sting. Hope it was worth it. I looked at my life, my calm, my space, my friends, my bike, the fact I didn't wake up bracing for a fight. It was, I replied. I finally married my own self-respect. And I walked away without looking back, because once you stop negotiating with threats, you don't go back to living under them.